In this video, I'll provide an overview of handling exceptions. What if something goes wrong in an application? When an unforeseen event occurs in an application, we say an exception was thrown. Java handles unexpected situations using exceptions when something unexpected happens in the program and when Java doesn't know what to do, in which case it creates an exception object containing useful information and throws the exception to the code that invoked the problematic method. There are several different types of exceptions, and I'll discuss what they are and how to handle them. Here are just a few of the exceptions that Java can throw. You've probably seen one or more of the exceptions listed here while working with NetBeans, and if you did, you probably found them helpful when you were trying to correct the code. Exceptions are classes. There are many of them included in the Java API. You can also create your own exceptions by simply extending the java.lang.exception class as demonstrated here. This is very useful for handling exceptional circumstances that can arise in the normal flow of an application. This code shows a common mistake made when accessing an array. Remember that arrays are zero-based. The first element is accessed by a zero index. So in an array like this one that has 5 elements, the last element is actually int array 4. Int array 5 tries to access an element that doesn't exist, and Java responds to this programming mistake by throwing an array index out of bounds exception. The information stored within the exception is sent to the console, and you can see it in the output window here. This is a very similar example, except that this time the code that creates the array and tries to assign a value to a non-existent element has been moved to a different class, testArray. Notice how the error message, shown below, is almost identical to the previous example, but this time the methods main in testException and addElement in testArray are explicitly mentioned in the error message. In NetBeans, the message is in red as it's sent to system.err. This is called the stack trace. It's an unwinding of the sequence of method calls, beginning with where the exception occurred and going backwards. The number after the colon in the lines that begin with @ indicate the line number where the exception occurred, and this is critical information that we need in order to debug our code. In addition, in Java, it's possible to catch or trap the message so that it's not sent to the console. When an exception is thrown, that exception is an object that can be passed to a catch block. There are 3 main types of objects that can be thrown in this way, and all are derived from the class throwable. First, there's error, which is typically an unrecoverable external error. External meaning it was caused by a condition external to the application, like the OS, for example. Then there's the runtime expression, which is usually the result of programming mistakes. And then there's an exception, which is recoverable. Only one type, exception, is checked, meaning it requires that you include a catch block to handle the exception. The first 2 are unchecked, and you may use a catch block with the other types, but it's not always possible to recover from these errors. Out-of-memory error is an error. Throwable classes of type error are typically used for exceptional conditions that are external to the application and that the application usually cannot anticipate or recover from. In this case, although it's an external error, it was caused by poor programming. This example has an infinite loop that continually adds an element to an array list, guaranteeing that the JVM will run out of memory. The error is thrown up the call stack, and because it's not caught anywhere, it's displayed in the console, and you can see list elements piling up until the memory exception is thrown.